Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me from a new undisclosed location somewhere in the heart of the valley beyond is Tim.
That's right. I'm finally moved in. I got a big old desk full of crap. No one will be able to see.
This is a new release week. This is a week where we went to the theaters to see a movie, and that is the new version, the new release of Black Christmas, the third movie, technically. Oh, not in the same franchise, but like the third titled film, which is at least. They got the rights, and it is technically a reboot or remake, although I think it's debatable when we talk about it, just really if that's really true, honestly, beyond like the loosest of details.
It is funny to have a franchise that's never had a sequel.
That's true. It's now the Black Christmas trilogy, and all three of them are standalone films. Black Christmas, the new 2019 version of Black Christmas, released by Blumhouse, directed by Sophia Takal, and yeah, we're going to get into it. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers, and we'll get into it. The gist of this one is very different to the original Black Christmas, to the point where I would say I've been set around a fraternity, or even a maternity, I should say. There's a frat house in it as well, which are kind of the villains, but like, I'll let them be based around a maternity, like.
I think it's called sorority.
Sorority. Look, we don't have these stupid things in the UK, okay? Also, I knew that. Why am I saying maternity? Do you know what it is? It's like I forgot the word and went, okay, what sounds feminine?
What's like the female?
Yeah. Oh dear, yeah, sorority. You're right, sorority. I do apologise. We don't have these silly college things in the UK. Yep. But so it's based around a sorority, and that's kind of, and it's set at Christmas. That is where the comparisons kind of end. I guess you could argue that the texting that happens in this is kind of the modern version of the phone calls, but honestly,
sure. Well, there's like one or two like kills that are nods to the original.
But honestly, for the most part, they could have called this something different, and no one would be saying, "Hey, you're ripping off Black Christmas." You know, no one would be saying that. And I think,
without a doubt, it's very much the Child's Play syndrome, where it's like, this really didn't have to be called this.
Yeah. No, it didn't. At least with Child's Play, they've got a doll called Chucky. They could have changed those details. With this, they don't have to change a thing. Well, there's nothing in this they would have to change. They could just call this, I don't know, Dark Christmas.
Hawthorne horror.
Yeah, they could come up with a witty thing based on the themes of the movie, because the movie is very much a Me Too film. We talked about the director deciding that she wanted this to be PG-13 so younger women could see it, or I should say younger girls specifically. It definitely makes sense to me after seeing it. Like, it wasn't very long into the movie where I went, okay, I can kind of see why she felt. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the choice, just as a horror fan, because I did feel the cuts. There was definitely moments in this where I felt you cut stuff there. There's one moment in particular, the most glaring in the whole movie, because there's a lot of kills in this, which obviously I won't spoil it yet, but there's a lot of kills where someone will just get grabbed and the music's still happening, it'll just cut to the next scene, right? It'll just end like that, and it's like, okay, that could have been planned like that, it may not have been, whatever. But there's one where a character's finding a dead body and they're slowly turning around in a chair, and there's like something sticking in their eye, and you could tell this was edited to like get a lower rating, because you like, it's just as it's turning, you see. It's like the cut back to the reaction is so quick, and you barely get a chance to see what she's looking at, that you can tell that shot was meant to last like 3 times as long before it cut back to her screaming, and it just really, really stuck out to me. Mm-hmm. But I mean, other than that, sure, I'd liked a bit more blood and stuff in some of the kills or whatever, but I feel like that's kind of the extent of the discussion about the rating, honestly. There's not really much more to say in terms of the rating, just because I feel like the reason is honestly pretty valid. Having watched it and seeing why she felt this was important for younger audiences to see, makes sense. So it is what it is. But like, we have Imogen Poots is kind of the lead character, and as I said on Twitter, Imogen puts those butts in seats. I'm sorry.
That's a good one.
I'm proud of that. So, no, we start off and they're in this sorority, and we're introduced to sort of the main sort of four girls who are kind of sisters, friends, whatever you want to call them, and there's kind of a backstory where Imogen Poots' character was sexually assaulted, in her like freshman year or whatever it was, because they're in their their final year now, and this is kind of a few years later, and they're kind of at odds with this frat house where all the guys are basically a bunch of pricks.
That pieces of shit.
It's basically my best description until we get to spoilers. But from there, like, obviously killings start happening, and even the trailer made it very clear that it was a very different kind of, like, it wasn't one insane killer who was going around killing people. The trailer made it very clear that this was probably a group of like frat boys, maybe who are in like a cult or something like that. That was very clear even in the trailer, and this movie definitely plays with different idea. The only other thing that I would say even like makes me think of the original Black Christmas is the idea that the first couple of deaths like happen to people who no one really knows there's something going on because they think they went home for Christmas. Like that was a kind of a plot point in the first original Black Christmas, is that the first death kind of goes unnoticed because they think she's went home for the holidays, and that kind of plays here as well. But I'll save other plot stuff for spoilers, just to say that the idea of the sexual assault and the way that the college girls are treated by the college boys is very much central to the theme. And very early on it addresses one of the girls is kind of this activist who's always trying to get petitions signed to remove offensive material, to sort of criticize the teaching syllabus for focusing on just all these straight white guys and all that kind of thing. So if you're the sort of person, dare I say, to keep it Christmas themed, if you're the sort of conservative snowflake who gets triggered the minute any of these topics are even discussed, you're going to hate this movie. You're going to walk out in a rage because how dare they preach to me, is what you're going to say. I have zero issues with, if anything, I was really into them having such a strong voice for this, because because the first thing I felt in the first 10-15 minutes when I realized it was really leaning into this heavily, I was like, well, this actually gives it its own voice. Like, even if it starts doing very similar things to the original didn't have these maybe there's some minor themes in there, but it wasn't this clear kind of in your face, we are going to take this subject, we're going to talk about this. And there is an argument to be made that maybe having more of a metaphor and not being as blunt with it, there's something to say about that. But I do appreciate that it has a really distinct message that it wants to get across, and I think it's one of the strongest elements of the movie. Now, does it go too far? Later on in the film, it might. There's two things this reminded me of, Tim.
Okay.
It reminded me of an episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you recall, in season 2, there's an episode called Reptile Boy, where it turns out that the frat house party that Buffy and Cordelia go to are a cult worshipping a snake demon. Now, that's not a spoiler for this movie. There's no snake demon, right? that's not why it reminds me of it. Just the idea of the frat boys maybe being evil and luring girls into traps and whatnot. It reminded me of that. It also reminded me heavily of an episode of the new Twilight Zone from this year, which did I can't really say why exactly, beyond the theme of the idea of having a Me Too kind of theme, beyond just the general idea of that, because there's a very specific detail late on in this movie that really reminded me of it. But so it reminded me of a couple of things. First of all, and it definitely goes places that are different. I'll say that. And I knew it was going to go places that were different from the opening quote that because it comes up with an opening quote at the start of the movie that I won't say until spoiler, even though it's the start of the movie. I won't say it until spoilers because I feel like it does just kind of throw an idea.
I didn't even remember.
Well, I don't remember the exact quote, but I can tell you the key words that stuck out to me as being like, where are we going with this? But with all that said, Tim,
yes,
did you enjoy the new Black Christmas?
Did you even really say what the plot was at all, or?
I said girls start getting killed, and there's
okay,
yeah, one's an activist, and Girls start going missing, and then Imogen Poots starts investigating and maybe suspects that it's the guy who raped her. Like, there's. But I think that's all we need for spoiler free. Like, anything else I think is.
Okay, so this is really tough because, like you said, it is a very message heavy movie. Like, and there's a lot to it too. It's not just like, one thing. Like, there's a lot of feminist stuff, and then like you said, like a lot of Me Too stuff. There's a lot of stuff about sexual assault, and like even stuff about like like cops not really, kind of doing their job and being dismissive, and there's a lot going into it. And I agree with you. Like, I do think that is like a cool thing to have in your movie, and I think it's it is like important, especially in these times and whatever. That being said, though, I just feel like they probably could have maybe like approached it like a little better, like, because it feels like it really like hammers it over your head like constantly throughout the movie, which I mean, I don't know, maybe that's not like a bad thing. Like, to me, it got to be, it seemed to like kind of overpower the movie, which I don't know if that's.
No, I see what you're saying.
It's hard to argue because it's all things that I agree with, but obviously I'm coming from the stance, as like, like a stance of privilege as like straight white male and stuff, that it's talking about things that I do think are issues, but obviously things that don't really apply to me, even though I do think they are important things that I agree with and everything. So and then like towards the end, again, we'll get to it in spoilers, but I think the choices in the end make it seem like a little goofier than what could have been handled better. It
definitely gets goofier at the end. I think there's kind of a mishmash of the exact tone that it wanted to have.
Yeah.
I think you could have had something that fit the tone of the ending, and had that throughout. There's something of more of a serious horror film throughout. And what's annoying is that from the trailer, like what I was expecting is, okay, they realize they're kind of in trouble, and from the trailer it felt like there was going to be like all the girls kind of like gear up and decide to fight back, and it was going to be this empowering like fighting back movie. And I kind of feel like in the movie itself, a lot of that just kind of happens off camera, and it didn't actually give me all the thrills that I wanted. And when I realized that I was already at the ending, and like I wasn't going to get the moment I thought I was going to from the trailers, I kind of got, I'm a little disappointed now. Like it didn't have that element that I was expecting, because I think the first chunk of the movie, the biggest problem I had with the first like half of the movie was just that the horror kills themselves kind of sucked, right? But I was actually generally enjoying the characters. I think Imogen Poots is very likable. The interaction between the girls is pretty enjoyable. I
would say like two of the things I really enjoyed, and I think that are strong suits in the movie, is the characters themselves. I think are really good, and I enjoyed like being around them and seeing them interact and stuff. And I did think the directing was pretty solid as well. Like there was some like pretty cool shots, and like like you kind of mentioned earlier, I do think it was hampered by the PG-13 rating, because as a horror movie, I do feel like we are cheated out of like some of the cooler kills and stuff. But like the story I didn't necessarily like where it goes, but the actual directing I did think was good. Like there was some kind of nice like like far away shots and like kind of cool imagery stuff that was done in there. So it was a very competently made film, and that almost sounds like a backhanded compliment, but I don't mean it to be, like, because obviously we just did 2006 Black Christmas, and I think this one is like head and shoulders above it in terms of just raw filmmaking, because I think the scenes flowed well. I started to care about the main character, a couple of the other characters too, but especially the main character, and I think it flowed quite well. I think the director here, Sophia Takal, knows what she's doing. She's not a bad director by any means. I think the script has a bit of a tone problem, because I think we're talking about how it's really in your face and it's really sort of hitting you over the head with what it's doing. I think that's okay, depending on your tone. I think because there's definitely movies or shows or comics or whatever where like, oh no, this thing just suits being this blunt, because that's kind of what it is, right? Sure.
you don't read I don't know, Watchmen or something like that and complain that it's you know,
right,
inserting these political things. It's kind of meant to be blunt, but it does almost feel like if it's going to be this blunt, it has to almost just veer straight into satire, as opposed to kind of try to keep its toes dipped in multiple things. And I think there's an argument to either just go further with it, and then the ending would fit with the satire, because the ending, like you say, is really goofy conceptually.
It almost feels kind of like superhero-y at the end.
Yeah, or likewise, you tone it back a little bit, and not in terms of like, and I don't mean for a second like hampering what the message is. Just tone back how much you're being over the head, and let kind of the actual story of the characters and them empowering themselves speak for more of itself. And I'm not saying like to keep the backstory, keep the themes of what you've set up, and keep the sort of there's like a sort of song they sing at the start that kind of makes it sort of sets a lot of things off. They'll keep all that stuff in there. But it did kind of start to really remind me of that Twilight Zone episode, and I don't say that as a compliment, because that Twilight Zone episode, again, very well intentioned, was very, very bad. Because it didn't have any subtlety and didn't know how to do, like, it didn't know how to actually create the tension properly. And I think this movie is at its best when it has our main characters trying to sort of like survive together and sort of debate together. Because I think actually it's going with the messages of the movie. I think maybe some of the best stuff with that is actually in scenes where the girls themselves are kind of arguing about the correct way to approach some of it. Like, like one of them like feels like they shouldn't like stir up the trouble as much. They shouldn't like talk about it as much. And another one's like, no, we should constantly be fighting. And then another one has another opinion. That was actually a very interesting scene to see like three women all debate with each other what the best approach of some of this material is.
It felt like very like realistic too, like of the like the way some people approach these things differently, and and it was like, it felt like a nice kind of like real talk of someone being like, hey, listen, I don't always want to fight, maybe you just want to let things go sometimes. Someone would be like, well, this isn't the time to do that, and so then it's like this is actually like pretty cool and interesting.
I think what I was hoping for going into it based on the trailer was like kind of like a team version of You're Next. I was kind of expecting the four girls to like gear up and sort of like stalk the streets looking for the killers and whatever. And I mean, partly maybe that'd be on me, but the trailer definitely gave me that vibe. That was why I liked the trailer, is I liked that aspect of it, and it felt so different from the original. But
yeah, I mean, and I do think it is also kind of hurt by being a remake, because even if you are completely different, you're still going to have expectations going in. So you're still going to be like, oh yeah, this is like a Christmas slasher or something, and then if you get something that's like a little different, even if it is better, I don't know, sometimes it can be kind of tough. I don't know, it's like this definitely isn't I definitely didn't hate this movie. I didn't love it either, though. I guess I'm kind of in the middle.
Yeah, I would go as far as say that despite the kills being kind of shit, I was actually more or less enjoying it for the first like hour. But the last like 20-30 minutes kind of put it into this is kind of silly shit now, and I don't know if I can really get behind it. Because I'll just say there is a slight supernatural element to this movie. That's all saying spoiler free. And once that came into it, it basically kind of just, I don't know. Once that was there, it was just, I was out.
Yeah,
I was out.
And it really puts like the like I feel like it puts like a lot of things like over the top, and that's the point where it starts to go from like earlier in the movie, like I said, they are really hammering home like the message, but at least it still feels like authentic, where by the end, with everything that happens and introducing that element to it, it kind of goes from feeling authentic to now it's just seems kind of cheesy and over the top.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, like, because the best parts of the movie are actually just straight up when they're actually having the debates and talking about like how they handle like the harassment they get, or how they handle like opposition whenever they speak up about something. Like, like it almost makes me wish that this wasn't even a horror movie. Just make a sort of, not a straight up drama. Like I think the characters are kind of fun and sort of lighthearted at times, and makes them kind of likable. So I'd say maybe a dramedy. Like give me a dramedy with the topic of these characters, and it might have actually benefited more. Not that a horror movie version of this can't work. I just think where it goes just kind of, I don't know, just ultimately like because there's ways to do this. Like I get the intent here. I get the intent of making, like, showing like just how, like the patriarchy, you know, the patriarchy and how it handles this stuff, and how men behave. Like I get making that into a bit of a farce to show how ridiculous it is that even, you know, anyone does this or whatever. Like I find a bit of a clash here with just with what it's doing, unfortunately. I don't know if this horror setting was necessarily no, I can't even say that because it is just the ending. Like, if this was just a straight up slasher movie where I think the girls sort of stand up and fight back, like I think I could be way more into it.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I guess I don't want to go into it until spoilers, but I think, yeah, kind of similar to what you're saying. I think that would have been a much better way to approach it, because I feel like you can still have, you know, like a important themes and messages like that in like a slasher movie, versus where when you go where they go, it just like it's just too much.
I think I like this movie quite a bit if you take out the supernatural element.
Yeah,
I think I like it a lot more.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, you know, you'd have to see, you know, what they handle in its place, but I do think that there's a lot better ways to go about it than what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think at this point we'll go into spoilers, but before we do that, I will thank our patrons for the month of December here. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess for being our Patreon producers. That means that they are $20 or up patrons on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you can go over there, and you don't have to support us for that much. Don't worry about that. You can support us over there for as little as $1 per month, and for that $1 you will get an exclusive bonus episode every month that streams after midnight. There's a back catalogue now, of course, because we've been doing this for a while, of about 12 episodes that are there that are exclusive to Patreon, and one comes every month. Plus there's bonus episodes of some other shows that we do on MailFuzz TV, and of course at the $5 tier you get voting rights, you get to add movies to the crypt, and so on and so on. And starting in January, actually, you'll be getting 1 or 2 episodes a month early as well, because there'll be a couple of extra episodes per month. So you know, all good things. So go and have a look if you want to support us and help keep the reviews coming, and maybe even get us to our goal, because if we hit a certain amount, we're going to start doing a live stream once per month called Streams After Midnight. So go have a look. But yeah, so full spoilers then for Black Christmas 2019 from henceforth. Like I said, the movie starts with this quote, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something like the powers of man can be, you know, supernatural, or something. I was like, oh god, what's this doing? Like, what are you doing, movie? And obviously the idea of like the frat boys in the hoods was in the trailer, and I'm typically like kind of just like, anytime something turns out to be like a cult of idiots in hoods, I tend to be kind of like annoyed by it. I don't know why, but that really annoys me often. Something like Hot Fuzz gets away with it because it's a comedy and it doesn't really matter. Sure, but like, you know, this did bug me. But no, we meet our main character. We meet some of the characters around the house. I actually really was a minor side character who has like only a couple of lines before she dies, but her one notable scene is when she runs into Imogen Poots' room and yells out she can't find her something cup. I have to admit, I'm not necessarily up in all my various menstruation sort of, you know, care products, but she had like a weird name for it, or I mean, maybe it's not weird, just something that I'm not familiar with, but it's like you understand what it is from the context. Yeah, because she borrows a maxi pad from Imogen Poots, but like she comes in and she's like, I can't find this, I've got finals in like 3 hours and I can't find my cup. and she sort of like stuffs it down her jeans, and I mean, and that kind of like, even before we get to some of the more like, you know, like we're going to start talking about the fact that the main character was sexually assaulted a few years ago. We're going to talk about the fact that she was roofied, and we're going to talk about how no one believes her, like how, like, you know, like this guy's friends, you know, say to her face when she's trying to work at like a little coffee shop that she works at, you know, it's like, oh, he would never have done what you said, you bitch, or whatever. You know, like, you know, there's all this abuse she gets. But before we even get to that, like, even just this moment of like her shoving like this maxi pad down her jeans, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely going to have a feminist bent to it. Like, they're definitely doing something here with this. But it was a funny scene. She was really funny. She made me laugh. So, you know, so, you know, we meet some of the other characters. We get this whole thing where we see that Imogen Poots is caring because she's like the younger, you know, sorority sister. She kind of looks after and gives her like her comb and gives her some advice and whatever. Which, by the way, one of the biggest things I hated actually in the last act was the twist with this character.
Oh yeah. That was pretty dumb.
There's a traitor. There's someone working with the men. Oh God, I hate it. And I get that represents that does happen. That there are, you know, yeah. I mean, I don't know. For example, any woman who voted for Trump, for example, may be considered to this is what it's representing. But
yeah, again, like I just feel like her reasoning for, you know, doing what she was doing just felt so like, oh, come on, no one would ever do that. Although, of course, you know, I'm sure there are people that would, but it did just feel like so kind of weird.
I think that goes back. I think that goes back to what I was saying about how, I understand, like, again, what she represents, but the actual actions of the character do feel a bit goofy, which is okay if this is satire. This is kind of what I'm talking about, where the last like 20-30 minutes, it feels like it's almost changed tone into a different movie, and I don't think it jives with the first, you know, chunk of it.
Totally.
So, because again, in a movie where everything was that heightened and everything was that satirical, I think that would work. I think it would work, the idea that you've got this, you know, quote unquote gender traitor. I don't like using that phrase, but you know what I mean. But like, so yeah, you know, you know, and there's nice little hints as well. You know, the other sorority sisters, all her friends, are doing this sexy dance at this frat party, which does feel kind of clashing because they keep trying to talk her into, like, you know, coming and helping. She has been helping with the choreography. I think she even wrote the song they sang, and they keep sort of like, and eventually the younger one who she sort of helps, she kind of like saves her from a potential assault, because she's sort of creeping around the frat house, and this guy's kind of like try to, you know, sort of force her into sex when she's, you know, a bit tipsy, and she sends her home, and she was maybe the fourth person in the dance, and the other sisters kind of convince her to take the fourth place, but it kind of establishes beforehand that, you know, she doesn't want to wear sexy clothes, she doesn't want to do any of that kind of thing. She wants to, you know, like, because one of the girls gives her like her red dress back, like, hey, just in case you want to look sexy for Christmas. She's like, no, I don't want it, you know, like, you know, before we even find out what happened to her, there's kind of these little hints that she has kind of like, you know, closed herself off to certain things because of what's happened to her. And it did play kind of weird almost initially, where they're like, why are you trying to talk her into this? Because by this point in the movie, when they're trying to talk her into like being the fourth person in this sexy, you know, almost like Mean Girls sexy like Santa dance, I'm like, why are you doing this to her? Like I mean, like, after what she went, I mean, it's been a couple of years ago, and maybe try to like get her confidence back, but this feels like a cruel thing to force her into. Of course, that's until I actually heard what the song was. Because the whole point of the song is that it starts off like a sexy Santa dance, and the lyrics quickly become about reaccusing this guy that attacked her. The whole point of this song is to say how kind of abusive this place is, and what the system here is like, and what this guy did to her, and you know, there's a lot of like you know, risky lyrics about, you know, slip me a roofie and then slipping a dick and things like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff like that in the song. And there's a whole moment where she kind of freezes up in it, and, you know, she sees the guy, because the guy's there, the guy attacked her's there, but then she gets her confidence back, and they kind of sing the lyrics, and she kind of stands up to him a little bit. It's a little empowering moment. But of course, this is kind of the moment that they all think is the reason why they're being attacked later. They think, oh, this is why they're out to get us, is because we did this.
Yeah, and then like they, you know, they even put it online, and, you know, it gets really popular and is getting like a bunch of hits, and also someone's filming it, and after the performance, one thing I thought was kind of weird, like I couldn't really tell if like people like the performance or not, because there definitely were some people that are booing, but I don't know if it was just that frat or if there are other people, because it seems like there were other people that were applauding.
It was a mix of people. I think the people who were cheering were primarily the women and any of the guys who weren't. They were just there because they were dragged to it. But the guys who were from that frat were the ones who all clearly were pissed. Yeah, they were all hating this.
So they they run out right after the performance, and as they're running, one of them says like, "Oh, that'll teach you whatever the guy's name is to rape anyone again," and then that gets included in the video when they upload it. So that's what one of the reasons later on they think like, "Oh, okay, this is why they're harassing us and stalking us and stuff."
Yeah, and actually, given what the this is a weird thing, actually, is there's a couple of kills throughout the movie early on to build up, right? But I actually don't understand why they even bothered killing anyone in the first 40 minutes of the movie, one by one, because it seems like the whole point of their plan is to all kind of rush all the sorority houses in the area at the same time on the same night. Yeah,
I honestly don't really know exactly what their plan is.
It's a bit of a mass siege, once we get halfway through the movie, they attack the house, and there's almost a little twist at one point where the campus security guy is called out, and we think he's going to the main house that we're watching, and he actually goes to a different house with different girls being attacked, and so it sets up the idea that they're attacking all these sorority houses and the for this college, presumably they're all kind of close by, at the same time. So I was like, but why were you killing one by one earlier in the movie like a slasher villain? It didn't, it felt like that was just there to give it a horror movie feel.
It almost feels like their plan is to just literally kill every woman. It would make more sense if it's oh no, we're targeting very specifically outspoken trouble causing women or whatever, but there's so many people early on at the beginning that's maybe they are those type of women. We just don't really get enough time with their characters, but it just feels like they're just random.
They did imply that they used because the activist girl who's I don't know any of the names. I can't remember. It was too many characters. Chris was the activist. She was getting a petition at the start to fight against stuff, and they kind of at one point, at least the main characters think that they've used her petition as okay, the people who signed this are the ones to go after. These are the ones we want to take out. So their plan's kind of flawed in that way. It's kind of weird. One of the girls, either Marty or Jesse, they've got a boyfriend who's kind of hanging around, and there's a kind of an interesting scene because I was kind of waiting for one of the guys who we think are nice to be a dick, right? It was an obvious thing to do, and there's kind of a love interest for Imogen Poots' character Riley, he's Landon was his name.
Landon.
So he's kind of been nice at the coffee shop, and he's trying to talk to her, and he gets invited to this dinner thing. And I was kind of expecting it to be a twist with him. It didn't actually do that. It kind of made a sort of like an analogy or a metaphorical point with him at the end. But the boyfriend character, Nate, who's boyfriends with one of the other girls, he has this scene. So it's actually one of the scenes that I quite liked, where there's the three girls are in the kitchen debating, why did you have to post this video and fight back all the time? Now it's just creating trouble, and we have to put up with this. And she said, no, we should always fight back. There's a point during this where Nate stands up and he's like, oh my god, would you shut up? And he sort of interjects into the conversation, and he's like, hey, we'll give you the right to sing that song anyway. Not all men are. And Chris is like, did you just not all men? And it goes down this path where it's actually the first hint of something to come later, which I guess we'll get into now, is that right, so there's a bust of the founder of this college, who is repeatedly told that it was a big racist and sexist, and I think there's a line at the start. It's almost kind of almost a comic beat where Chris yells out he had slaves, and then there's a pause, and she says, "In the north," it's just, and it turns out when they were forced to move the bus because of a petition into the frat house, a black gooey ooze a substance started oozing from it, and this substance, even though like it doesn't make even any sense, this, to be honest, that they say this substance gives them like enhanced speed and strength, but like you never get that from any of the scenes where they're actually attacking people. Like the girls are all fighting back well enough, like as much as any other slasher movie or whatever. Like there's no sense that they're like so overpowering that they can't fight back. So you've got that problem, and then you've got the problem that they're when they initiate new members, they're painting this goo on them, and this goo, in fact, not even just the goo, apparently like the statue, the bust itself, is like sending out signals which is actually making men worse. Like it's actually turning men who are otherwise decent into more like of these like these abusive assholes. So we don't realize it in this scene at the time, but the whole idea here is that because Nate keeps complaining about a headache before this, is that headache is actually the first sign that this effect is happening to him. And I get the metaphor here, I get what it's doing. It's saying that the previous generations of abusive men who are supremacists or whatever are basically spreading their beliefs and ideas, and it's like a disease that's spreading to the younger generations of men. I get that it's doing that. Again, if the whole movie was that satirical and that kind of like farcical, I could get into that as like a sort of beat, but it's not. Like up until that point, like nothing felt like that, so it kind of like took me out of it. And it happens with Landon again at the end, where they kind of like indoctrinate Landon, and he can't fight it, and he's like sort of taken over by it. And again, it's this idea that young men who might otherwise be good people are completely indoctrinated by the influence of older assholes. And so I get what it's doing. I get the attempt here. I just, it's a little bit farcical. And yeah, can we not gloss over the fact that I said that there's a statue oozing goo that is being used to enhance people. It also makes them want to kill the women. And there's also, for some reason, they know that if they have like objects from the women, they'll target them.
Yeah.
Like so for example, Riley's comb that she gave to the younger character who like turns on them, she has that comb on the table with all these other things. The girl's cup thing is one of those items where that's how so not only are they being enhanced, they're also being kind of like drone controlled. Like they're just like being set after a target based on an object that's been held on like a table.
Yeah. This is so stupid. Like and very unnecessary, because like you could just have like, I would totally be fine if you just have
a bunch of evil men. Just have a bunch of evil men.
Like you could just have a frat of assholes that like, and they can still worship this guy. Like they could be like, they could be like, oh, you're trying to erase this guy from history, but he was a good man and we got to fight back for him. Like that's a totally acceptable motivation for like a slasher in a slasher movie. Just adding all this supernatural, like mystical goo, which again, it's not like there was someone at the frat that was into the occult that like summoned this guy or made this statue. It's literally like, oh, well, we were moving the statue and we discovered this goo was coming out of it. Like, what? That is like so dumb. And it sucks because I think it does like, for a movie which was such like a big message, like I feel like it does kind of hurt it by introducing this really stupid element to it.
Yeah, when they're in the house and they're being attacked and like they end up having to fight off like the guy, because they all come in like crossbows and stuff, and Riley has to like beat one to kind of death, and one of them sacrifices herself so the other two can get away. There's little beats of like the solidarity and like the defending each other, and that's it's this part of the movie where there is kind of the like, okay, so they turn the girl around, it's got Christmas lights all over her and things like that, which again makes no sense in the context of this, like what the killers actually are and what they're doing, but but once it gets to like they grab Riley, the younger girl betrays her, and she's like with them. And by the way, the guys kill her anyway because they of course they can't be trusted. Why would they be trusted? And they're trying to like convince like Riley to like sort of like give in to them and worship them and they'll spare her. And so we have this scene where they're all in these cult robes and they're all standing around her, and we didn't even mention the lecturer, the professor who played by Elvis, how do you say his last name?
Always. I think.
It's one that's always baffled me. But he's this lecturer who at the start, when Riley's in class, like brings up the petition to like change the course reading material, and he tries to make this point about how the author he was just quoting from was a woman and you assumed it was a man because blah blah blah, and he's kind of intimidating throughout the movie, and of course he turns out to be the leader. He turns out to be the leader of the cult.
Yeah. He's like one of those like logic lords, which is like really annoying. Where that like example is so dumb. Where he's like reading this like kind of sexist thing, and then he's like, "Oh, but what if it was a woman that wrote it? Like, oh, hey, I owned you," and it's like, whatever.
Yeah, okay. Proving that one woman was maybe crazy and delusional does not mean that all the sexist men are right. Just FYI. So like, you know, the ending is just really rough, and obviously like Riley wanted to go and try and destroy the statue, and that was basically the moment the movie turned for me, because it became about destroying the mystical item, and I was like, oh, whatever. But she splits up from Chris, because they're the only two survivors from the main house, and Chris runs into a group of other survivors who've had to kill their attackers, and basically just in the nick of time before Riley's killed, like Chris like leads a team of about, you know, six of them, all holding weapons. So this is what I say, when the trailer kind of made me think there was going to be like a, you know, them gearing up and like protecting themselves. Like it all happens off camera, and it's just that them showing up at the end. And I realized at this point that this final kind of cult scene was going to be the big climax. I was like, oh, this is it. Oh, I'm not getting like my big sort of empowering moment of them all like deciding to be proactive and fight back. It's more just reactionary for the most part, but.
It's also weird that like the majority of the people fighting back are people that we have no context for who they are. Yeah,
we've never really met them beyond one or two quick shots. And obviously Landon kind of comes out under the control and kind of like apologizes it wasn't him, he was under the control with the mystical stuff, and that's whatever. They burn the place to the ground, and that's kind of the end of the story. But
now, did you notice the ending is really weird? So it's like the place is burning, and you know, Riley kind of has like I guess just kind of like a look of awe or whatever, like exhaustion, but then like the last second she gets like a surprised look on her face, like she just sees something, but you never see what it is, and then it just cuts to black.
Yeah, I don't know what that was supposed to be either. You are forgetting, of course, the mid-credit sequence, which
sure.
Yeah, setting up the Black Christmas cinematic universe, where the cat who lives in the main house starts licking some of this goo that comes from one of the dead bodies that they killed earlier, and I guess that's implying that we're going to have an evil, sexist race of cats for the sequel.
Hey, who knows, if Cats does really good next week, they might want to capitalize on that.
Yeah, they might. Maybe they will. Cat Christmas. No, Black Catmas. There you go. That's what you call it.
Black Catmas. Okay. All right. Sure, there's a lot of pussy jokes you can make about that. Sorry, but...
Way to lower the tone, Tim. Way to lower the tone. Joe, it's a shame because I think this movie is well directed, and I think the main character's likable, and it flows quite well. So for the first like 40 minutes to an hour, whatever
you know what actually I really like, and I think it's like the most slashery bit of the movie, and I kind of wish the whole movie was a little bit more like this, but the opening kill I thought was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, well the girl's like walking down the street, and she thinks the guy behind, and this was in the trailer so I knew it was coming, but she thinks the guy behind her with the phone's the one texting all these weird messages, which, you know, they come whenever I get it texted, it's from an account claiming to be the founder of the college. And the guy just like takes a left turn right when she thinks she's going to have to turn around like fight. But I obviously the kill itself I didn't like, although I liked the little touch of her when she gets killed in the snow. She kind of makes a snow angel.
I thought that was pretty cool.
That was all right. I kind of like them sneaking about the house trying to like avoid, because when they first get attacked, like they kind of like they all had their phones out, so they drop all their phones. So they're kind of like, one of them tries to go and find a phone, one tries to go and find the fourth girl that they didn't realize was missing, and we know she's already dead, but they don't, so they're kind of looking for her. So there's some creeping around, and I was kind of enjoying that stuff. It was kind of like a horror movie that I was enjoying, even though the kills weren't that great, just because I kind of liked the characters and the direction was pretty solid.
And then like there's another good one too, where the girl who the one that's missing her cup in the beginning, before she's leaving, she's trying to find her cat because it sounds like it's stuck somewhere, and it's just again, I thought it was like directed really well because it's kind of like a little bit like of a far away shot, kind of like a
it's like a sort of really high angle shot. It's almost as a security camera, and we can actually see the cat under the table behind her, so it's kind of like a neat little thing where we can see it but she can't. And then someone comes out and grabs her. Does he like strangle her with lights at that point? I forget if that was her, but no, I think
he like grabs her with something.
I think this one he literally just walks up behind her and grabs her, and the scene cuts away. I don't even remember if he was holding anything in this scene.
Oh, maybe it wasn't. But no, like that was like again, like I kind of wish we got a little bit more of that because I thought like that looked really cool, and it was like leaving a lot of room to breathe. Like it wasn't like doing like a quick jump scare kind of thing. So there's like elements like that was making me think like, oh, this is like directed really well. I like, what Sophia Takal, what was the last name?
I'll go double check.
Takal.
Yeah, Sophia Takal.
Yeah, like I liked what she was doing in that, and then and again, it feels like it gets so bogged down by this like crazy ludicrous ending, which like and we've talked about before, like we do like when a main character fights back, like that is like a really cool thing, but in this case it just feels like a superhero movie. Like it turns into like Wonder Woman for a second, and I feel like it just kind of takes away from the movie where it's like so over the top. But
I would be okay with that if it built up to it more, but it just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere for me. And I didn't necessarily find nothing about the last like 20-30 minutes I liked. It's a shame because I think if it's just stuck the landing after what we already had, I think I'd be fairly positive on this. It wouldn't have blown me away, but I'd be saying, nah, this is a worthwhile little Christmas horror movie. You should go see. Characters are good. It's got a nice message. It's got a point. It's got like a creative voice behind it that's saying, hey, I want to tell this story for a reason. I want to tell this story because I want to get these struggles across and have this empowering movie. All of that is great. The problem is just it goes into goofy ass territory in the second half that I just hate.
Totally. And then I forget at some point someone does like throw a bag over someone's head. I think it's like the reversal. Like one of the women do it to one of the guys. Yeah.
It's like a callback to the suffocation death from the original, but it's the opposite.
Yeah, so like I think that's what I kind of mentioned something like that earlier, where again that's like really like one of the very few like references I can see to the actual original movie.
Yeah, this could have been called something different. Honestly, though, as a remake, I don't hate it because it is so different that there's no point. I don't even, I can't be mad at it. Yeah,
it doesn't affect the original, and the original is just one movie. Like, it's not like we had 10 Black Christmas movies in a franchise, and now they're rebooting it for this, and it's like, oh, we want the original timeline back. It's like it's just one movie, whatever. It's not gonna affect it.
Yeah, just you wait. The next one will be one of those reboots where it's like, no, this is a sequel to the original. We're going to do a sequel to the original Black Christmas.
Honestly, I would not be surprised.
So we'll see how well this does. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's terrible. I like I say, I actually think there's a lot of good qualities in there, and I do think it's better than the last one because it is way better directed. It's not like, because the filmmaking itself in the 2006 one was really annoying me because it was so over the top, and the characters were so just sort of like nothing but one-liners. The characters in this felt like they actually had character. The main two, Riley and Chris especially, I liked them debating, and the direction was pretty solid. Unfortunately, the kills were lacking bite due to the rating, and then you have the goofy supernatural kind of sort of direction it goes in, which for me, like, it was just a big fat no.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're on the same page. I can't really disagree with any of that, and it's still like a very watchable movie. Like, it's and it's like 90 minutes. Like, I was never really bored at any point. Like, even though I didn't like the ending, it's still like it wasn't tough to watch or anything. So it's like, I'd still say it's not a bad movie to watch, but it just, it's unfortunate because it could have actually been like a really cool, good, interesting movie. But I guess it still is. But like, it could have been a lot better.
I think my final point just on the mess, because I love the messaging. I think there's nothing wrong with having your political voice. I mean, art is political, and it should be. It always has been. I think the whole thing with the ending, when I say it takes the message too far and beats you over the head with it, I think that feeling comes from the fact that in the first half of the movie, it's not a metaphor. It's very literal, and it's talking about what it's saying, and the characters are actually discussing sexual assault, they're discussing how they're being treated, they're discussing how they're not being believed and things like that. And then the last chunk takes it and does all this metaphor stuff with it, with the goo and the mind control and the fighting back, like all that stuff. It becomes very metaphorical, and I think you can have one or the other. I think having both, it makes it feel kind of redundant, and I feel like I've had this complaint before. I can't remember what movie it was, but I remember there been a movie where like you had the metaphor that was telling your message, and then you had to go and say it anyway. It may have been the other way around, but like I feel like you can either just outright talk about it and keep it relatively serious, right? Or you keep it more dialed back, but do it through the metaphor and through your absurdity. Doing both, like having the first half openly talk about it like directly, and then flipping it and doing like the farcical, like here's the metaphor stuff with supernatural shit. I think those clash, and I think one or the other, but not both. Well,
and especially because you're dealing with stuff that unfortunately is very real life, and you don't need. It's like these kind of assholes, in this frat, like there are people that are like that are not magically possessed. It's not like you don't need to add that. It's like, I mean, it sucks, but unfortunately, those kind of people are around. So it seems, I don't know, kind of unnecessary.
Yeah.
And also, like, for people complaining about it, though, too, like, I do feel like the original Black Christmas, like, again, like, it might have not had, such an overt message, but I still feel like that was kind of like a feminist movie. Like,
it wasn't as in your face with it, but I mean, it definitely followed these characters. It definitely had elements of the police not believing them. I mean, we didn't even talk about the campus security guy. Before he gets killed, when Imogen Poots is concerned that when she hears from one of the mothers that the friend hasn't gotten home when they're supposed to, she gets concerned that maybe she's went missing. The others think it's only been a few hours since she meant to arrive. Train delays, whatever. Although in the age of cell phones, like if you're running late, you phone the person, you say, hey, like train's delayed or whatever. But she goes to campus security to like sort of tell him, and I kind of liked how he was played, actually, this guy, because he was very dismissive, but he wasn't like, because it'd have been very easy to have him be like over the top, like, oh, shut up, you little silly girl, like, stop being like, you on your period, what are you doing, go away. Like, it'd be very easy to have him be that. He was still kind of pleasant enough, which I think made it feel more real. That he was, he wasn't just being like a complete straight to 11 dick. He was like, I'm not really taking you seriously because I just don't believe that this is happening. But he's nice enough about it the way he's doing it. So it makes him feel more real. It highlights the problem and makes you feel frustrated for her perspective, but without making it so cartoony that it's like, just done it for the effect.
And he still ends up doing his job. It's just that he, doesn't really do it very well, but and he's very reluctant to do it, but he is still like, all right, fine, we'll go to this place. And then even there, he's like, do you want me to give you a ride home? Like, listen, blah, 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 this happens, whatever. Like, yeah, you can tell he's like, a dismissive dick and everything. But yeah, like you said, he's not like so over the top and saying like, like, hey, sweet cheeks, what's the problem? Like, it could have easily been played like that. And it was, I like those little more subtle, kind of felt realistic.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Things to like, but it goes places that I don't think make it ultimately work. So, Tim, what would you rate 2019's Black Christmas?
I think I'm gonna give it a 6. Again, like there's definitely like a good amount of things to like, and like we said, I think the two big strong things here is I think it is, it is still well made. Like I like the director, and I like all the actors and the characters. It just, man, that last like 20-30 minutes really, really brings it down. Like even if the ending wasn't great, like if you did something different, I feel like it would just help it so much better. But yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. Cause yeah, it's definitely not perfect, but like it's, it's hard because you don't want to criticize it too much, because like when it does have, like a very strong message and it's like something you agree with, like you definitely, you kind of want to be careful, because you're like, listen, there are things wrong with it, but that's not it, like.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, again, like it goes about giving that message in maybe too many ways. Yeah, I think that's maybe a better way of saying it, rather than saying it does it too strongly. It's just that it does it in too many different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely not the problem with it. Like,
I think I saw someone on Twitter, I think, put it away, which I thought was a kind of a good way to describe it, where they said it's certainly not a subtle movie, but we're not really living in subtle times, which I was like, that's fair. I think that's totally fair.
And for the record, some of the best horror movies of all time were very political. Night of the Living Dead is super political. Yeah. It may not be as in your face as maybe like we do with some movies now, but it is there. Like, you go back and watch me and Tim talk about it. We talked about Vietnam, we were talking about racism, we were talking about lots of things in that movie.
Yeah, that's why it's super. I mean, I feel like you don't hear it in horror movies as much, but as people that love comics, it's really baffling whenever people get upset when they have some type of message or political thing in comic books, where you have Captain America punching Nazis, like that, like back in the 40s or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, comic books have never been political. Like it's kind of ludicrous to not want to have messages and stuff in your art. Like, really, when people complain that, it's just because it's a message they don't agree with. But yeah.
That's basically it. They're basically just, I don't want this in my media because I don't agree with it. So yeah, I didn't rate it yet. My rating would be a 6. I think it just scrapes a 6. I think like I'd go lower, but I do really like the characters, and I do think it was well directed, and I think the ending is rough. It might play better when I know it's going there, on a repeat viewing, and I'm not necessarily opposed to watching it again, to be honest. I'm not in a rush, but
Well, I mean, it'll be a new annual tradition to watch the Black Christmas trilogy.
I'm not watching 2006 again. You kidding me? So yeah, I'll go with a 6. I'll give it a 6, and I do think it's better than 2006 version. I think it's better directed, and it's certainly better made. I think they're two very different animals. I would say, like, they're all like pretty different. Like, if you want, obviously the original is going to be the most solid bang for your buck. I think it's still a classic. The 2006 one, I think if you just want something like really dumb and cheesy, then I think that's perfectly fine to watch. I think this one is a little more nuanced and better well made, so that would probably be a better watch. But again, to each their own. I say. On a side note, Imogen Poots, I feel like she's been playing college-age characters for about 10 years now. It's it's kind of. I'm actually curious what age she is, because not that I think she looked too old in this movie by any means, but I remember seeing her play a college-age character in like 2010. So like, and obviously older people can be in college. I mean, that's very true. Oh yeah, she's literally a month younger than me. So she is 30 years old. Okay. Not that I don't think she didn't pass for the college age in this. She did, but this is more just because I've seen her do this kind of role for a long time, and I was like, man, she's been doing the same. Like
I feel like I've heard her name a lot, but I can't really name too much that she's been in. She was
in Green Room. Was a bigger one recently.
I think that's where I know her from.
She was in Green Room. I saw her in a couple of things. She was in I Kill Giants last year or 2 years ago, which I really liked.
Watch that.
I really liked that movie.
I love the comic book, so I need to watch it.
She was also in She was in like a rom-com thing I got dragged to like a number of years ago, which is that was probably back when and I'm saying I saw her play College Age a long time ago. That'd have been probably what I was talking about.
I feel like I mean, she was definitely great. She's probably like the most biggest name in the cast. But I mean, really, I like all the girls, but I really liked I guess kind of the other main character, Chris. I'm not really too familiar with who that person is, but I thought she was great.
Also, she's going to be in the Why the Last Man TV show, apparently.
Oh, okay.
According to IMDb.
Oh, I thought. I forget who's the. I'm assuming she's playing the kind of like the second lead. Is it like 47 or something? Isn't it like an agent name or something? I
don't know. I
forget.
It doesn't say on IMDb who she's playing. I wouldn't have thought so. Because Agent 47, well, it's not 47, that's Hitman. Agent whatever her number is.
I love Why the Last Man, but it's been so long that I read it. It might not even be a number.
But that character, if I recall correctly, was black, so I don't think she's playing her.
Oh, well, I was talking about. I think we're talking about two different people then. Because who was the black character in Black Christmas?
I'm talking about Imogen Poots, not Chris.
Oh no, I was talking about Chris. Sorry.
Right. Okay, that's where the confusion is.
Okay, so Imogen Poots is going to be in Why the Last Man.
Yeah, so probably either his sister.
Yeah.
Or maybe the long lost love interest from Why the Last Man.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
One of those. I think the sister's got a bigger part. I'd probably say the sister, because I don't think you cast Imogen Poots in your TV show and don't give her like one of the main roles.
Yeah. That would make sense.
She's also in a film coming out called Prisoners of the Ghostland. Is that a horror movie?
You could go either way.
Action, horror, thriller. Okay. A notorious criminal must break an evil curse in order to rescue an adopted girl who has mysteriously disappeared. Yeah, there's horror in there. Wait a minute.
Sure.
Is that Nicolas Cage? Nicolas Cage.
All right, we'll watch it.
Yeah, we'll watch it. All right. Oh God! Nicolas Cage in another horror movie called Wally's Wonderland. Yeah, I forgot about that. We did that in the news a few years ago. Anyway, that wraps up. That's us. We're not even talking about the movie anymore. That has been Black Christmas 2019. This has been Screams After Midnight. You can let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments below. You can like and subscribe. Ding the bell on YouTube. Make sure you get those notifications. You can support us in a couple of different ways. Obviously, we mentioned Patreon if you want to, give us money financially, because that helps a lot, obviously. But you can support us in other ways as well. You can rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars. It helps more people find us. You can also share us out on social media, introduce us to your friends, and I'm sure they'll hate you for it, but do it anyway. Maybe they'll get addicted, and that's good for us. So do all that stuff. Check out other content that we have, of course. We've got a science fiction movie podcast called The Atomic Cinema Experiment. The Ace, that is me and Tara that do that, kind of similar to this show but with sci-fi movies. And of course check out all the TV reviews that go up, and the comic book podcast, Comics from the Multiverse. There's all sorts of things to go check out, but otherwise look forward to more Screams After Midnight. We do have another Christmas movie next week. Also, the bonus Patreon movie for this month is a Christmas movie, which will be going up sometime this week, so you got those to look forward to. And then after that, we'll be doing our top 50 movies of the decade. Now, the top 10 of the year and some of the other year stuff that we do, we won't do until a couple of months into the year, because we want to have the time to catch up on anything that we've not been able to get to in 2019. But we are doing our top 50 of the decade for the end of the year. At least the first part will be right before New Year's, I think, because we'll be in 2 parts, but you can look forward to that. So but that is it. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we'll see you next time. Pay attention, Timothy.